Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to HK Cheating Stories. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get the story started. My name is Michael Evans, and a few months ago, I showed up at my wife's sister's wedding, only to be stopped at the door by a security guard who said my name wasn't on the list. At first, I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. My wife was inside, laughing with her mother, watching me get turned away like a stranger. That was the moment everything changed. I thought betrayal came quietly. I was wrong. Mine showed up in a tuxedo, with a smile, and an invitation that meant absolutely nothing. And that was just the beginning. It was supposed to be a good day. One of those crisp, early spring mornings that carries just enough chill to keep things fresh, but warm enough to promise a celebration. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the tie Rachel picked out for me. A dark blue silk one with a silver clip. She said it would match the color theme of her sister's wedding. Funny, looking back now, how much I tried to look like I belonged. My shoes were polished, my navy suit tailored just a week ago, and pinned to my lapel was a small white rose. Rachel's idea, of course. Samantha will love it, she had said. It'll look perfect in the photos. That stuck with me. Perfect in the photos. As if I were some accessory in her curated life. Still, I was hopeful that day. Samantha and I weren't close, but I was there to support my wife. Her family had always been difficult. I was never truly welcomed. Not by her mother Evelyn, not by Samantha, and certainly not by their circle of upper-class snobs who only measured a man by the brand of his watch or the size of his wallet. I didn't fit their mold, but I never let it bother me. Until that day. The venue was grand, a sprawling estate with marble fountains, trimmed hedges, and valet parking. It looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Guests in tailored tuxedos and glittering gowns swirled around me, laughing and sipping champagne before the ceremony even began. I took a deep breath, smoothed my jacket, and approached the entrance. There was a security guard at the door, clipboard in hand, checking names with practiced indifference. "Name, sir?" he asked, not even glancing up. "Michael Evans," I said confidently. "I'm Rachel's husband." His brow furrowed. He scanned the list again and again. "I'm sorry, sir. Your name's not on the list." At first, I chuckled. I thought he was joking. That can't be right. I was invited. Rachel must have confirmed it weeks ago. He shook his head. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." My heart skipped. That's when I saw them. Just a few yards away, Rachel, standing beside her mother Evelyn, both dressed to perfection. They weren't rushing over to clear things up or defend me. They weren't shocked or confused. No, they were laughing. Rachel had one hand over her mouth, trying to stifle a giggle. Evelyn, never one to hide her disdain for me, let her head fall back in a loud, exaggerated laugh. Their eyes met mine briefly. No remorse. No shame. Just amusement. The blood drained from my face. I suddenly felt the weight of 100 eyes on me. People were watching, whispering. A few phones even went up, casually capturing this humiliating moment as though it were part of the entertainment. I stood frozen. My invitation still clutched in my hand. Useless now, just a piece of fancy cardstock with my name nowhere to be found on a clipboard. It hit me, all at once. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Planned. Executed like a precision strike, a calculated embarrassment, tailor-made for maximum exposure. I wanted to yell. To demand answers. To ask Rachel how she could stand there and laugh, while I was being treated like an intruder. But something in me, maybe pride, maybe exhaustion, told me not to give them the satisfaction. They wanted a reaction. They wanted a scene. I wouldn't give it to them. I looked the guard in the eye, gave a small nod, and turned around. My legs felt like lead as I walked back to the car, each step heavier than the last. I could hear a woman near the entrance whisper, "Was that her husband?" Another voice replied, "Ouch. That's cold." Cold didn't even begin to describe it. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly I thought the leather might rip. My chest ached. I replayed the scene over and over. The smirk on Evelyn's face, the subtle glee in Rachel's eyes, the unmistakable message, "You're not one of us." When I finally made it back, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car for almost an hour, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't recognize the man looking back at me. He looked tired, hollow, broken. I wasn't just left off the list. I was erased from the picture entirely. I didn't say a word when Rachel walked through the door later that night. She was glowing, flushed cheeks, champagne on her breath, the faint scent of roses trailing behind her like perfume. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor as if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't been humiliated in front of her entire family, her friends, and whoever else had seen me turned away like some unwelcome stranger. She didn't even flinch when she saw me sitting on the couch. "You didn't stay for the ceremony?" she asked casually, slipping off her shoes and tossing her clutch onto the entryway table. I stared at her, trying to gauge if she was being serious or just playing dumb. "You knew I wasn't on the list," I said flatly. She shrugged, walking past me as if the conversation didn't require her full attention. "Mom thought it'd be easier to keep things simple. Samantha wanted an exclusive guest list. You understand, right?" My jaw tightened. Understand? Understand being publicly embarrassed? Understand watching your wife laugh while a security guard denies you entry to a wedding you were supposed to attend with her? I didn't respond. What was the point? That night, as Rachel slept soundly beside me, undisturbed, unworried, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a reel of laughter, whispers, and the sight of her covering her mouth to hide a giggle. The more I replayed it, the more I realized it wasn't about the wedding. It was about respect, something her family had never given me, and something she clearly no longer felt I deserved. The next morning, I scrolled through my phone, trying to distract myself. But there it was. A notification. A video. The thumbnail was unmistakable. Me, standing at the venue entrance, brow furrowed, hands out in confusion. The caption read, "When you don't make the VIP list." My stomach dropped. I clicked the video. It showed everything. The guard turning me away, me insisting I was Rachel's husband, and in the background, the unmistakable sound of Rachel and Evelyn laughing. The camera zoomed in on their expressions, amused, smug, entertained. It wasn't just neglect. It was premeditated. They filmed it. They shared it. My humiliation had become their content. And worse, it was going viral. By the time I got to work on Monday, the damage had already spread. My coworkers said nothing at first, but I could feel the shift, the awkward glances, the stifled chuckles, the forced small talk. During a morning meeting, one of the junior staffers tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, Michael," he said with a smirk. "Next time just RSVP as a +1. Laughter rippled across the room. I didn't join in. I sat there, expressionless, boiling inside. Later that day, I checked social media again. The video had thousands of views. The comments were brutal. "She really left him off the list? LOL savage. Man thought he was VIP. Nope. This is why rich girls marry up." I turned off my phone and stared at my desk, my hands trembling. This wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was character assassination. My identity, as Rachel's husband, as a man with dignity, was being torn apart by strangers online for their amusement. When I got home that evening, I tried one last time to speak to Rachel. What you did, it's not okay," I said, holding up the laptop and showing her the video. "Do you have any idea how this makes me look? How this makes us look?" Rachel barely looked up from her phone. "People are overreacting. It was just a bit of fun." "A bit of fun?" I asked, my voice rising. "You stood there laughing while I was being humiliated. You watched. No, you enjoyed it. And now the whole internet is laughing with you." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. "You humiliated me, Rachel. Publicly. Deliberately. And you don't even care." She crossed her arms. "It wasn't personal. You take everything too seriously." There it was. The final nail in the coffin. My wife didn't just disregard me. She disregarded what I stood for. Who I was. What we had built together. I didn't speak another word that night. There was nothing left to say. But in my mind, something had shifted. A realization that had been slowly forming over the years now stood in full light. Rachel didn't love me. Not the man I really was. She loved the image, the stability, the way I made her life easier. I was a background character in her story, a prop. And props are disposable. As I lay in bed again, watching her scroll through her feed without a care in the world, I knew something with absolute certainty. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. This was about survival. And I had finally reached my breaking point. The days that followed blurred together in a strange mix of silence and noise. Silence at home. Rachel barely spoke to me. And when she did, it was short, clipped, dismissive. As if I had somehow overstepped by daring to be upset. as if my humiliation was something I should have just laughed off. And then the noise, endless, relentless noise, online. The video had exploded. It was everywhere. Shared, stitched, memed. Awkward husband gets denied entry to wife's family wedding. I saw my face frozen in confusion, my voice distorted for comedic effect, my disbelief turned into a punchline. Even now, I still remember the comment that broke me. Imagine being so unwanted that your own wife laughs while you're thrown out. Every word hit like a gut punch. I didn't respond. I didn't comment. I didn't explain. What was there to say? I just kept scrolling through the flood of ridicule, hate, and cheap laughs, feeling like I was watching a car crash from the inside. Rachel? She didn't flinch. If anything, she thrived in the chaos. Her social media exploded too, not with shame or apologies, but with curated perfection. New photos every day, champagne brunches, designer shoes, lavish rooftop dinners. Smiling with her sister Samantha, lounging by the pool with Evelyn. No mention of me. No acknowledgement of what had happened. I wasn't even a ghost in her digital world. I was invisible. It was as if I never existed. One night, I stood behind her silently as she scrolled through her feed. I watched her type a caption. So blessed to be surrounded by the people who truly matter. The people who truly matter. I walked away before she noticed I was there. I wasn't sure if I was angrier at her indifference or at myself for staying in this farce of a marriage. Later that same night, I was working late in the home office. Reports to finish, budgets to review. At least my job still needed me. At least I could still find worth somewhere. That's when I heard her, Rachel, on the phone with her mother in the hallway. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The walls in our house just weren't thick enough to protect me from the truth. Thomas just doesn't get it, she said, annoyed. He thinks budgeting means saying no to a pair of shoes. It's embarrassing, Mom. I froze. Vivian's response was muffled, but I heard enough. Don't worry, sweetie. He's beneath us. This is just a phase. A phase. That's what I was to them. A temporary inconvenience. I clenched my jaw, fists tight under the desk. I wanted to storm out, demand answers, scream until they understood the weight of what they were doing, but I didn't. I didn't give them that satisfaction. I sat there, in my own home, in my own life, feeling like a stranger. I stopped trying after that. At social events, if I was invited at all, I showed up late and left early. If I spoke, I was talked over. If I tried to contribute, Vivian would offer me a tight smile and say something like, "Isn't it sweet how Michael still tries?" And Rachel would laugh. Always laugh. She laughed at me. With her friends. Her family. Even strangers online. The breaking point came one quiet Sunday afternoon. I was scrolling through my own feed, trying to distract myself. And then I saw it. A new video posted by one of Rachel's so-called friends. It was the wedding clip again, but edited now with dramatic music and freeze frames. The moment the security guard pointed me away, the laughter, Rachel's face, slowed down to emphasize her amusement. The caption this time, "When you're the husband, but not the priority." And in the background, I heard Rachel laughing in real life, on the couch, watching the same clip. I stood there, staring at her. "You think this is funny?" I asked. She looked up, startled for a second, then shrugged. "People need to relax. It's just a joke, Michael. Don't be so sensitive." "A joke?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "You turned me into a meme, Rachel. You mocked your own husband. And now you laugh along with the rest of the internet." She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. "You always make everything about you." I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse her name. I just sat there hollow. Because that's what she'd made me, hollow. I wasn't angry that she came from wealth, or that her family looked down on me. I wasn't even angry at the world for laughing. What destroyed me was the fact that she did nothing to stop it, that she joined in. And the one person I thought I could count on in that moment, the woman I married, wasn't just absent. She was the one filming, the one laughing, the one pressing post. I stopped trying to pretend after that. Pretending I was okay. Pretending our marriage still had any semblance of love, or respect, or even basic human decency. Rachel had crossed a line, and not just any line, but one so deep, so final, it carved a canyon between us that no amount of apologies or fake smiles could bridge. But what hurt the most was how easily she moved on. 1 week after the viral video hit its peak, Rachel was back to planning Samantha's post-wedding brunch. The same sister who didn't want me anywhere near her special day. The same mother who laughed like I was the punchline to some high society joke. And Rachel? She played her role flawlessly, doting daughter, perfect sister, social media darling. I, meanwhile, was left to rot quietly in the background. It was a Wednesday night when she came home from dinner with her family. I was in the kitchen, microwaving leftover takeout, the same pad thai I'd been living on for 3 nights straight. Rachel walked in with her heels dangling from one hand, her phone in the other. "You should have come tonight," she said flatly. "Everyone was asking about you." I scoffed. Were they asking why I wasn't allowed at the wedding? Or why I became a viral meme? She didn't even look up. "You're still upset about that?" Upset? No. That word had lost all meaning. I wasn't upset. I was unraveling. But I kept that to myself. Because by then, I knew something she didn't. I had stopped caring about salvaging what we had. Now, I was just trying to survive it. That weekend, Evelyn hosted what she called a small family dinner. In her world, small still meant crystal glasses, a personal chef, and seating charts. Rachel insisted I attend. For appearances, she said. Of course. Everything with her was for appearances. So I went. I played along. I wore the gray blazer she once said made me look less out of place. I smiled when people greeted me. I nodded through shallow conversations about luxury resorts, home renovations, and someone's second Tesla. Then dinner was served. We all sat around a long table that could seat 20. Evelyn sat at the head, naturally. She raised her wine glass, giving a little speech about family, legacy, and how Samantha's wedding had been the event of the year. Everyone clapped. Except me. That's when Evelyn turned to me, a smirk playing on her lips. "Michael," she said, her voice dripping with mock warmth. "You must be proud." The wedding went off without a hitch. I met her gaze. I wouldn't know. I wasn't allowed in, remember? A hush fell over the table. You could have heard a fork drop. Evelyn gave a patronizing laugh. "Oh, darling, don't take it personally. It was Samantha's day. You're more of a behind-the-scenes kind of guy." Behind the scenes. That phrase lodged itself in my chest like a dagger. Rachel giggled beside me. "Mom didn't mean it like that. Don't be so sensitive." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a woman who had sold her soul for likes and status. A woman who had no loyalty. No empathy. Just image. That night, as we drove home in silence, I couldn't stop replaying those words. Behind-the-scenes guy. That's what I had become. The man who paid the bills, booked the flights, managed the mortgage, fixed the broken sink. The man who made her life work while she pranced around pretending she built it alone. At home, we argued. Really argued, for the first time in months. "Why do you let them treat me like this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Like I don't belong. Like I'm some hired help you forgot to dismiss. Rachel crossed her arms. "They don't mean anything by it. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I asked, stunned. "You humiliated me, Rachel. Your mother humiliated me. And you laughed. With her. You made me a joke, and you don't even see it." She sighed and turned away. "Can't you just let it go? Let it go." That was the moment I realized we were done. Not because of the wedding. Not even because of the video. But because I wasn't just fighting her family anymore. I was fighting her. Her loyalty wasn't to me. It never had been. It was to Evelyn. To Samantha. To the illusion she curated online. I was just the background prop who helped make the stage look stable. And she didn't even notice when the foundation started to crack. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor while she slept beside me. Peacefully, carelessly. A voice inside me, quiet at first, whispered something I couldn't unhear. "You're not her husband anymore. You're just a placeholder." And deep down, I knew it was right. The cracks weren't forming. They were already there. The only question now was, how much longer would I let myself stand in the rubble, pretending it was still a home? The next few days moved with a strange clarity, like I was drifting through someone else's life. I woke up next to a woman I no longer recognized, worked a job I used to take pride in, and came home to a house that felt colder than the office. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened next. It was Monday, midday. I was eating lunch at my desk, half reading emails when Jeff, a coworker I barely spoke to outside meetings, peeked his head into my office. "Hey, Michael," he said, holding out his phone like it was radioactive. Have you seen this?" I didn't want to. But something in his tone made my stomach tighten. He handed it over. There it was, a headline from a popular gossip blog. Wedding wreck, behind the scenes of a viral disaster. The thumbnail? A freeze frame of me, standing in front of that damned wedding venue, looking confused and humiliated while Rachel and her mother laughed in the background. My throat went dry. I skimmed the article, hands trembling. It didn't stop at the video. No, this was a full-blown expose. Someone, likely a journalist who caught wind of the viral attention, had started digging. What they found was explosive. It painted Rachel, Samantha, and Evelyn as frauds. Their glamorous social lives? Funded by mounting credit card debt and personal loans. Their so-called family wealth? Inflated stories, smoke, and mirrors. The entire wedding was funded through unpaid vendors and forged promises of exposure. Samantha's sponsorship deals were already collapsing. And Rachel? The article called her a walking contradiction, more committed to hashtags than her husband. I wish I could say I felt vindicated. I didn't. I just felt empty. The article went viral within hours. At work, people stopped trying to hide their curiosity. They whispered when I walked past. Some offered awkward sympathy. Others pretended like they hadn't seen it at all. But I knew better. I could see it in their eyes. The pity, the embarrassment on my behalf. I couldn't take it. I left early, ignoring the missed calls from Rachel. By the time I walked through the front door, the energy in the house had shifted. Tension clung to the walls like smoke after a fire. Rachel was pacing the living room, her phone clutched tight in her hand, her face streaked with panic. "Michael," she said the moment she saw me. "We need to talk." I didn't respond. I dropped my bag and leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Then Evelyn appeared from the kitchen, her usual smug composure replaced by desperation. "This article is ruining us," she snapped. "Lisa's deals are falling apart, and people are pulling out of Rachel's collaborations left and right." "Good," I muttered. Evelyn's head jerked back like I'd slapped her. Rachel stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Michael, please. You're good at this kind of thing, damage control, planning, strategy. You can help us fix this." I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Now you want my help? After turning me into a laughingstock? After making me the centerpiece of your public circus?" "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Evelyn insisted. "It was just miscommunication." "Miscommunication?" I snapped, voice rising. "You orchestrated my humiliation, filmed it, laughed about it, and shared it. That wasn't a miscommunication. That was malicious." Rachel's hands trembled. "I made a mistake, okay? I didn't think it would get this bad." I stared at her. This woman I once loved so fiercely, who now stood before me like a stranger pleading for a lifeline. "You didn't think," I said coldly. "That's the problem. You never thought about me. You never thought about what this would do to our marriage." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Evelyn, still grasping for control, tried again. "You have contacts, Michael. Talk to them. Help us." I turned to her slowly. "You used me. All of you. You treated me like furniture. Useful until I didn't match the aesthetic anymore. And now that the house is burning down, you want me to hold the hose." The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel finally whispered, "I'll do better. I'll fix it. Please just don't give up on us." I stared at her, the woman who had laughed at my pain, who had turned my dignity into a hashtag, who only saw my worth when her empire started to crumble. "I gave you everything, Rachel," I said, voice steady. "My loyalty, my support, my love, and you threw it all away." I walked upstairs without another word. I packed a bag, not in anger, not with fury, just quiet determination. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't look back, because I knew if I did, I might falter. I might forget all the cracks, the laughter, the betrayal, but I couldn't afford to forget anymore. Not this time. I thought walking out would be the hardest part, but I was wrong. It wasn't leaving the house. It wasn't the stunned silence on Rachel's face as I closed the door behind me. It was what came after, the unraveling. The discovery that what I thought was the worst was only the beginning. I checked into a modest hotel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place with a bed, working Wi-Fi, and most importantly, distance. I needed to breathe, to think, to remind myself that I was still a person, not just a punchline. The first 2 days were a blur. I ignored Rachel's calls. I blocked Evelyn. I shut everything out. But the silence didn't last long. It was a Wednesday afternoon when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Hi. Is this Michael Evans? A woman's voice asked cautiously. Yes. Who's this? My name is Melissa. I was Samantha's event planner. Well, former event planner. I sat up straighter. Okay. I don't want to intrude, she said quickly. But I felt like you deserved to know the truth, the whole truth. Especially after everything that happened. My pulse quickened. Go on. Melissa let out a breath, as if she'd been holding it for days. The wedding? The guest list fiasco? That wasn't an oversight. It was planned. Your name was intentionally left off. I already knew that. But what she said next nearly made me drop the phone. Rachel used your joint savings account to help pay for the wedding. Tens of thousands. I saw the transfers myself. When I asked about it, she told me not to worry, that you'd never notice. That you were too simple to understand how money works. Her words, not mine. The room went silent, except for the roaring in my ears. She said that. I'm sorry, Michael. I wouldn't be calling if I didn't think you needed to hear this. You didn't just get humiliated. You were robbed. After I ended the call, I sat there in a daze. It felt like the floor had given out beneath me. All those long hours at work, every extra project I picked up, every late night spent budgeting, saving, building a future for us, she drained it. For a wedding I wasn't even allowed to attend. I drove straight to the house. I didn't call. I didn't knock. Rachel was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a throw blanket and her phone, like nothing had happened. Like our lives weren't in flames. She looked up, startled. Michael, what are you? I dropped the folder on the coffee table. Printed bank statements. Transfer logs. Screenshots. She stared at them for a moment, then slowly reached for the papers. Her face paled. Care to explain this? I asked, my voice low but sharp. I can explain, she stammered. Don't insult me further. Her hands shook. I was going to pay it back. I just didn't think it would matter. You always take care of everything. You wouldn't miss it. You used our savings, I said, my voice rising, to throw a party I wasn't invited to. You made me the laughingstock of the internet, and then funded the humiliation with my own money. Tears welled in her eyes. I was under pressure. My family. Your family doesn't matter right now. We do. Or at least we did. I snapped. You betrayed me, Rachel. Not just my trust. My work. My life. You drained everything we built. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing now. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I took a step back, shaking my head. You keep saying that. But you meant every post. Every laugh. Every swipe of the card. You meant all of it. There was a long pause. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. So that's it. You're just walking away. I stared at her. This woman I had once loved beyond reason, and felt nothing but emptiness. No, I said quietly. You walked away. The day you chose your family's image over your husband. I'm just finally catching up. She cried harder, but I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach out. I'd done enough reaching. That night, I packed up the last of my things. I left the house we once called home, the house I paid for, maintained, and cherished, and I didn't look back. No dramatic exit. No slammed doors. Just quiet, final resolve. Rachel had betrayed my trust. But worse than that, she had used me. For money. For image. For laughs. And now she would have to live in the ruins she created. Alone. The night I walked out for good, the air felt different. Cooler. Still. Free. It wasn't the kind of dramatic exit you see in movies. No yelling, no shattered glass, no rain-soaked confrontation on the front porch. Just me, a duffel bag, and the hollow sound of my footsteps as I left behind a life I once thought was forever. I drove aimlessly for a while, windows down, letting the wind push away the weight that had been sitting on my chest for months, maybe even years. I checked back into the same quiet hotel. Room 207. A bed. A desk. A window that overlooked a dimly lit parking lot. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And that, in the moment, was everything. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. But peace was fleeting. 2 days later, the calls started again. Rachel's number flashed on my screen at all hours. Morning, midnight, in between meetings. I ignored them. I had nothing left to say. The silence, I figured, would speak louder than any final words ever could. And then it stopped. No more calls. No more texts. Just stillness. Until one quiet Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. A new message. From her. Can we talk? Short. Soft. Hesitant. I stared at it for a while, thumb hovering over the screen. I don't know why I replied. Curiosity, maybe. Or some small, stubborn part of me that needed to hear the apology. So I typed back. Go ahead. She called immediately. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. Less sharp. Michael, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. You're right, I said calmly. She exhaled shakily. I messed up. I know that. I let my family get in my head. I let their expectations become mine. And somewhere along the way, I forgot who was really in my corner. I didn't say anything. I wanted to see where she was going with it. I didn't mean to hurt you, she continued, voice cracking. But I did. Over and over. I made you feel small. Invisible. Like you didn't matter. I watched the videos again, and I saw your face, and I don't know how I could have ever laughed at that. At you. I closed my eyes, leaning back in the stiff hotel chair. Part of me wanted to believe her. To think that maybe, just maybe, this was the moment she finally got it. But then I remembered Melissa's voice, trembling as she told me about the stolen savings. I remembered Evelyn's mocking laughter. I remembered Rachel sitting on the couch, watching my humiliation on her phone like it was entertainment. It's not just about the video, I said quietly, or the wedding. It's about the fact that when the world laughed at me, you laughed too. You let them, and you liked it. I didn't think it would go viral. You didn't think at all. I snapped, the anger finally bubbling back up. You were too busy curating the perfect image, living for likes, making sure your mother approved of everything. And I was just the guy holding the foundation together while you built a fantasy on top of it. She was silent for a long moment. Then, you're right. I wasn't prepared for that. I don't expect you to forgive me, she whispered. I just needed you to know. I see it now. All of it. What I did. Who I became. And how I lost the only person who ever truly had my back. I let those words hang in the air. Maybe for the first time, she was being honest. I appreciate the apology, I said, voice calm. But Rachel, forgiveness isn't a time machine. It doesn't undo what's been done. And it sure as hell doesn't mean we go back to what we were. I know, she said, her voice barely audible. I just wanted you to hear it from me. And then silence. No pleading. No bargaining. Just silence. I hung up, set the phone down, and stared out the window. A streetlight flickered in the parking lot. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. And in the stillness of that hotel room, I realized something. I didn't feel broken anymore. Hurt? Sure. Betrayed? Absolutely. But broken? No, not anymore. Because this was closure. Not in the form of a perfect apology or a grand reconciliation, but in knowing that I had the strength to walk away. That I had the clarity to see who she really was, and the courage to choose myself over the version of me that used to beg for scraps of her attention. That night, I slept better than I had in months. And when I woke up, the world didn't feel as heavy. Because Rachel's apology wasn't a beginning. It was the end, and I was finally ready to write something new. The morning after Rachel's apology, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still. It wasn't joy, and it wasn't bitterness either, just a strange, quiet calm. Like standing in the ruins of something you once tried so hard to protect, and finally accepting it was meant to fall. Her words had confirmed what I already knew deep down. The person I loved, the woman I built my life with, no longer existed. Maybe she never did, but I was still here, and that had to mean something. I started with the small things, booking a new apartment, canceling the joint accounts, cutting off the last few shared threads that kept Rachel tied to my world. Every step was a clean slice, sharp but necessary. The apartment was nothing fancy, just a modest place in a quieter part of town. Bare walls, empty fridge, a place to start over. It was mine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend to be someone else just to keep a relationship afloat. I didn't have to apologize for who I was, or beg for a seat at the table I helped build. I was free, bruised, yes, but free. I buried myself in work at first. As a project manager, structure was my safe space. I took on the tougher clients, the riskier proposals, anything that gave me purpose. My team noticed. The awkward stares that followed the viral video faded into respect. Quiet nods. Support. Jeff even stopped by one afternoon with a six-pack and said, "Glad to see you standing taller these days." It meant more than I let on. But work wasn't everything. I knew that now. So I reached out to old friends, the ones Rachel had called small-town thinkers and energy drainers. Turns out, They were the ones who remembered who I really was. One of them, Marcus, invited me out for drinks. Just like old times. No pretense. No curated selfies. Just beers, stories, and the kind of laughter that doesn't come with judgment. You look different, he said as we sat on the bar's back patio. Lighter. Divorce will do that. I joked. But it wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of losing myself. I started running again, something Rachel always scoffed at. She used to call it a broke man's gym. Now, it became therapy. Mile after mile, I ran through the fog of betrayal, through the ashes of my past life, until my legs ached and my mind cleared. Then came the camera. I found it one day while unpacking boxes, an old DSLR I hadn't used in years. Photography had been a hobby I shelved when Rachel called it a distraction. I dusted it off, charged the battery, and took it out on a weekend stroll downtown. Something about capturing the world through a lens again made me feel alive. That's when I met Clara. She was running a small art booth at a local park, paintings, sketches, and a few photographs of her own. I lingered a little too long at one of her pieces, a black and white photo of a rain-soaked city street, empty but full of emotion. You like it? She asked, her voice soft but confident. I do, I replied. It feels honest. We talked for over an hour. About art, light, composition, things I hadn't spoken about in years. There were no pretenses, no performative smiles. Just two people who saw the world a little differently and liked that about each other. We met for coffee the following weekend. Then dinner. Then walks that turned into conversations I didn't want to end. Clara didn't care about my past, not the viral video, not the headlines. She didn't care about social standing or brand names. She cared about real things. About people. One night, she asked me, "Do you think you've forgiven her?" I thought about it. I think I've accepted what she is. That's probably more important. Forgiveness didn't mean going back. It meant moving forward on my terms. Months passed. Seasons changed. Rachel reached out a few more times, sometimes apologetic, sometimes defensive. I didn't respond. Not out of hate, but because I finally understood that silence is its own kind of closure. I had already spoken my truth. I didn't know her anything else. One morning, while sipping coffee on my balcony, I scrolled past an article online. The rise and fall of social media's perfect family. Her name was buried deep in the piece. A footnote in a scandal she once orchestrated. I felt nothing. No rage. No satisfaction. Just relief. I had survived the storm. And now, I was building something new, slowly, intentionally, brick by brick. A life rooted in reality, not appearances. A future shaped by honesty, not manipulation. As I packed my camera bag for a weekend photography trip, Clara by my side, smiling with her whole heart, I realized something. She once said I wasn't enough. But she was wrong. I was more than enough. And I didn't need her, or anyone else, to believe it anymore. Because now, finally, I did. Looking back now, after everything that happened, I realized the pain wasn't wasted. The betrayal, the humiliation, the slow unraveling of a marriage built more on appearances than truth, it all taught me something. Something deep. Something lasting. I learned that love without respect is just a performance. That silence in the face of cruelty is not grace. It's surrender. And most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to choose yourself. Not in your 30s. Not in your 60s. Not ever. To anyone out there, especially those who've spent a lifetime putting others first, your value isn't measured by who stays with you, but by who stands for you. Don't let comfort trap you in disrespect. Don't confuse loyalty with self-neglect. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to start over. I did. And I'm not ashamed to say the life I found after the storm is richer, quieter, and far more honest than the one I had before. You're never too old or too far gone to reclaim your worth and begin again. Because sometimes the greatest peace you'll ever find is the one you give yourself.